In 1992, the first Western Conference of the Forest Fire Lookout Association was held in our yard. We had 82 people for the conference, 3-day conference, but this sign showed up. And the story of this sign, it's the forest headquarters for the Olympic National Forest at Olympia, Washington. And they had built a new headquarters building, and this was to be the sign in front of it. Well, it's made out of solid redwood. It's not cedar even, it's redwood. And like almost none other in the whole system, but the contractor was getting ready to hang this sign and the one just like it back to back in front of the building, and the building inspector showed up for the county of Thurston County in Olympia. Said, well, we have an ordinance here of a sign that big, and so you can't put it here. Well, as it turned out, the sign's about 2 inches too big to meet code. So they had to order new ones. And the contractor hauled this and the other one back to his shop and stored them for 2 years and called me for 2 years, come and get these signs. And I didn't want them. Where would I hang them? Out in my front yard? And so when we had our lookout conference, this Army rig pulled up in our front yard, and I said, hey, give me a hand. My wife spotted this sign, and she said, that'd make a nice picnic table. That's how we ended up with it. In 1953, the Chelan National Forest was split, and the Okanagan was created out of the north half and the Wenatchee out of the south half. And the district ranger at Chelan went by the book and told my brother to take down every one of those signs that says Chelan National Forest, because there is no Chelan National Forest anymore, 1953. And when you take them down, you bury that sign where you took it down. Well, about 20 years later, this one got mysteriously dug up. And I ain't telling you who did it and how I got it, but here it is today. Well, the guy that was the lookout on Pyramid Peak, he knew that they were being taken down and buried underneath the spot where they hung. He went back up his lookout about 40 years later and dug up his sign. That's how we get their signs. Well, when they took these down, look what they replaced them with. Something that every squirrel, every porcupine, every bear had fun taking apart. Some of the signs that we managed to collect come from forests that don't exist anymore. The Snoqualmie still exists, but it's not called the Snoqualmie Mount Baker. Here's one from the Rainier National Forest. It was down in the southwest part of the state, around Mount Rainier. The Columbia National Forest was southwest part of the state, now called the Gifford Pinchot National Forest. And the Wallowa National Forest is now the Wallowa-Whitman in eastern Oregon. Well, these signs, they're porcelain. They're iron with porcelain. You shoot this with a .22 and it'll bounce off. It won't hurt the sign. These are all products of the 1920s and 1930s. And it's a shame they can't be in the woods today, but they disappear in a hurry if those were tacked in the woods today, because you can sell them on eBay and they bring hundreds of dollars.
So a lot of money nowadays.
Oh yes, it's ridiculous what people will pay for that stuff. But these are rather rare because they represent national forests that don't exist today. The largest fire ever in the state of Washington was the Carlton Fire in 2014. The Tillamook burn was bigger down in Oregon. The Carlton Fire down in southwest Washington was almost this big. But the Carlton Fire beat them all. And 2014. It was in the Meadow Valley. Well, this sign was captured at Loop Loop Summit, where you entered the National Forest. And this is our souvenir of that fire. Well, little did we know at the time, but 1 year later in 2015, more than twice that number of acres would burn in that same area. 1.2 million acres would burn in 2015 in Chelan and Okanagan County. So that record went down in a hurry. I gotta shoot a jab at the Forest Service once in a while. They're an awful good outfit, but I had to rescue that sign. It sat there at Barmigan Creek Campground on the Nez Perce Trail of the Lewis and Clark Trail for 20 years before somebody had to rescue it. It was at the entrance to that campground. They won't miss it. And that fire started 300 feet from the lookout. And it killed 2 firefighters. It was one of the epic lightning caused fires that developed into one of the hottest fires ever. And we made the sign. Rod Fosbeck got the big cedar. That's a nice big chunk of cedar there. And it was a single piece of cedar from the sawmill up at Colville. And my son Dave was able to carve it at work. So we hung it as a project to the Lookout Association and the museum. And the snow load on top of that mountain forced the poster about 12 inches. They broke both of them off. Stood about 6 feet tall. And so this thing, when the snow broke the posts off, it broke the sign too, so they carved new ones. And that's how we got that one back. The Forest Service shield changed ever so little over the years. Here it is from 1908 to 1919. See the size of the crown of the tree? Okay, in 1920, see the size of the crown of the tree? Very, very little change. Okay, in 1922 to 1935, see the crown of the trees changed a little? And from this one to the present, the crown is more crown and less stem. And those are the only changes. However, look at the size of the letters in the ones they use today compared to the size of the letters from the 1920s and 30s. That's how you can tell the age of a sign in the Forest Service.